Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. This happened back in November 2019. I was 22, a college student at the University of Arkansas, and I needed money badly. Found a night shift job at a Shell station off Interstate 40, about 30 miles outside Little Rock. Middle of nowhere, really. Just farmland, forests, and the occasional 18-wheeler roaring past. I'd been working there for about 8 months when this story takes place. By then, I knew the routine. The drunks stumbling in around 1 a.m., the truckers grabbing coffee and energy drinks, the occasional traveler stopping for gas and directions. But there was one customer who stood out, a regular. Every single night at exactly 3:17 a.m., this middle-aged man would walk through the front doors. He was maybe 50, 55 years old, always wore the same red flannel shirt, faded jeans and work boots, thinning gray hair, deep-set eyes, never smiled, never made small talk. Just walked straight to the coffee machine, poured himself a large black coffee, grabbed a pack of Marlboro Reds from behind the counter, and paid with exact change. Always exact change, down to the penny. "Thanks," he'd say in this gravelly voice. That was it. Then he'd walk out into the darkness. The weird thing was, I never saw his car. The security cameras showed him walking up to the front doors from the parking lot, but I never saw headlights pulling in or pulling out. Just this guy materializing from the darkness at 3:17 a.m. every single night. I started looking forward to his visits, honestly. When you're working alone for 8 hours straight, any human contact feels normal, even if it's just a 30-second transaction with someone who barely speaks. Until the night he didn't show up. It was a Tuesday in November. Cold as hell, first real freeze of the season. I kept checking the clock. 3:15, 3:16, 3:17 came and went, no regular. 3:18, 3:19, nothing. I actually got worried. This guy had been coming in every night for 8 months straight. Never missed a night, not once. I found myself staring out the windows, looking for him walking across the parking lot. Kept expecting to see that red flannel shirt under the fluorescent lights. 3:30 a.m. Still nothing. I started checking the security cameras obsessively, rewinding the footage to see if I'd somehow missed him. But he wasn't there. The rest of my shift dragged on forever. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When my replacement showed like that. I was starting to feel crazy, but I knew what I'd seen. This guy was real. I'd talked to him hundreds of times. We pulled up the register records for those times. 3:17 a.m. every night. No transactions. No coffee sales, no cigarette sales. Nothing. But I remembered ringing him up. I remembered counting out his exact change. Tom sent me home early that day. Told me to get some sleep, maybe see a doctor. I could tell he thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But I couldn't let it go. I decided to work one more night, shift. I had to know what would happen. November 23rd, my last night at that gas station. I came in with a plan. I set up my phone to record the counter area. If this guy was real, I'd have proof. If he wasn't, oh, well, at least I'd know. The night dragged on. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 3:15. My heart was pounding. 3:16. I stared at the front doors. 3:17. The doors opened, and there he was. Red flannel shirt, work boots, thinning gray hair. He walked to the coffee machine like always. Started pouring himself a cup, but this time I really focused. Really looked at him. "Excuse me," I said. He looked up at me. Those deep-set eyes, darker than I remembered. "I need to ask you something," I continued. "What's your name?" He just stared at me for a long moment. Then he walked to the cigarette display and pointed at the Marlboro Reds. "No," I said. "I need you to answer me. What's your name? Where do you come from?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out exact change. "Set it on the counter." "Please," I said. "I need to understand. My manager says you don't exist. The cameras don't show you, but you're here. I can see you." For the first time in 8 months, he really looked at me, met my eyes directly. "You're the only one who sees me," he said in that gravelly voice. "Why?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to answer, but I had no words. "Why?" he repeated. And then he was gone. Not walked out. Gone. The coffee cup he'd been holding clattered to the floor, empty. The exact change was still on the counter. I grabbed my phone and played back the recording. For 30 seconds, it showed me talking to empty air, having a conversation with nobody, then suddenly reacting like someone If you're still listening, you probably enjoy stories like this. A like or a comment helps keep them alive. This next story happened about 6 months after I quit that gas station job. I'd moved to Montana for a fresh start, found work at a 24-hour Exxon station outside Billings. Middle of winter, 2020. Brutal cold, the kind that makes your breath freeze before it leaves your mouth. This place was even more isolated than Arkansas. 20 miles from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but prairie and mountains. During blizzards, we'd sometimes go hours without seeing a single customer. The phone rang constantly at that job. Automated sales calls, wrong numbers, drunk people looking for directions. After a while, you learn to tune them out. But one night in February, the calls became personal. It started around 2:30 a.m. I was restocking the coffee station when the phone rang. Nothing unusual about that. Exxon station, I answered. Is this Sarah? The voice was male, middle-aged, calm. Yeah, this is Sarah. How can I help you? Are you working alone tonight? The question made me uncomfortable, but I get weird calls all the time on night shift. I'm sorry, I can't give out that information. Do you need directions somewhere? I was just wondering if you're alone in there. It must get lonely. I hung up. 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same voice. You shouldn't hang up on people, Sarah. That's not very polite. Look, I don't know who this is, but you're wearing your blue hoodie tonight. The one with the hole in the left sleeve? I looked down. I was wearing my blue hoodie. There was a small hole in the left sleeve. Who is this? Just someone who's been watching. You had Chinese takeout for dinner, didn't you? From that place on Grand Avenue. My hands started shaking. I'd ordered Chinese food earlier, before my shift. I'm hanging up now. Don't call back. Your daughter Emma is staying at your mom's house tonight. Third house on Maple Street, the one with the blue shutters. The line went dead. I was terrified. This person knew where I lived, where my mother lived, where my 7-year-old daughter was sleeping. I thought about calling the police, but what would I tell them? Someone called and knew personal information about me. The phone didn't ring again that night, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. The next night, 2:40. He was right. I'd forgotten coffee and stopped at 7-Eleven 20 minutes before my shift. The worst part was his voice. a.m., the calls stopped. But at 5:30, just before my shift ended, the phone rang one last time. "I know you get off at 6 a.m., the voice said. "I know you take Highway 287 home to your apartment." My blood turned to ice. "I know you stop at that coffee shop on 3rd Street every Saturday morning. Emma likes their chocolate chip muffins. If you touch my daughter, look outside, Sarah. I'm here." I looked through the windows and saw headlights in the distance. Not moving, just sitting there on the access road about a quarter-mile away. "Wave to me, Sarah. I can see you in the window." I ducked behind the counter and called 911. Told them someone was threatening me, gave them the location of the headlights. "Stay on the line," the dispatcher said. "Units on the way." The headlights disappeared before the police arrived. They found nothing. No car, no person, no evidence anyone had been there. But the calls stopped after that night. I never found out who it was or how they knew so much about my life. Changed jobs immediately, moved Emma and me to a different town. Got new phone numbers, new addresses, the works. It's been 3 years now. No more calls. But sometimes, when my phone rings late at night, I still feel that spike of terror. I still wonder if someone out there is watching, waiting, knowing things about me they shouldn't know. Emma's 10 now, old enough to notice when I check the locks 3 times before bed, when I insist on walking her to school instead of letting her take the bus. I've never told her why I'm so careful. How do you explain to a child that there are people out there who hunt for victims in the darkness? People who find your weaknesses and use them against you? Sometimes I still get paranoid when my phone rings at night. Even now, years later, a part of me wonders if he's still out there somewhere. Still watching. Still waiting. This last story happened just 2 years ago, summer of 2021. I'd moved to Georgia by then, small town called Valdosta, about 20 miles from the Florida border. Hot, humid nights where the air felt thick enough to cut with a knife. I was 19, just graduated high school, working nights at a BP station to save money for college. Quiet place, family owned. Got maybe 10 customers total during an 8-hour shift. Around 4 a.m. on this particular night, I saw headlights pulling into the parking lot. Unusual for that time of morning, but not unheard of. Figured it was a trucker needing coffee or a bathroom. But it wasn't a truck. It was a white cargo van, unmarked. No company logo, no license plate that I could see. It parked right in front of the entrance. The driver got out and immediately gave me bad vibes. Pale skin, thin build, maybe 40 years old. Moved wrong somehow, like his joints weren't working properly. Wore dark clothes and kept his head down so I couldn't see his face clearly. He walked straight to the counter. "Delivery," he said. His voice was raspy, like he hadn't used it in a while. "Delivery? I don't have anything scheduled. Snacks, drinks, for the store." He gestured vaguely toward the shelves. "I'm sorry, but I don't have any paperwork for a delivery. My manager didn't mention anything." The man stared at me for a long moment. His eyes were strange, too pale, almost colorless. "It's the right place," he said. "I have the address." "What company are you with?" He didn't answer, just turned around and walked back to his van. I thought he was leaving, but instead he opened the rear doors and started unloading boxes. "Wait," I called out. "I can't accept any delivery without paperwork." He ignored me, carrying boxes toward the entrance. Each box was plain cardboard, no labels, no company markings. "Sir, you need to stop. I can't let you bring those in here." He pushed through the front doors with an armload of boxes. "These go on the shelves," he said, setting them down near the snack aisle. I came out from behind the counter. "Look, I don't know what's going on here, but you need to leave. I'm not accepting any delivery." That's when he looked at me directly for the first time. His face was gaunt, hollow cheeks, and those pale eyes that seemed to look right through me. "You need to accept this delivery," he said quietly. "It's very important that you accept it. Number I." "People who come shopping at night." The way he said it made my stomach turn. "I'm not accepting anything. You need to leave now, or I'm calling the..." At 4 a.m. until they found him. I never saw that van or that man again. But I heard similar stories from other night shift workers over the next few months. Always the same description: pale man in dark clothes, white cargo van with no plates, unmarked boxes with something that shifts and moves inside. Some clerks accepted the deliveries. Those were the ones who ended up in hospitals or disappeared entirely. I never found out what was in those boxes, and I don't want to, but I think about it sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep, there are people out there who hunt for places like that gas station. Isolated, vulnerable, staffed by one person who can't call for help. They come in the darkest hours, when the world feels thin and strange. They prey on people who are alone. I quit that job 2 weeks later. Told my boss I was moving away for college, but really I just couldn't handle the isolation anymore. Couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if I'd accepted those boxes. Sometimes I wonder if he was targeting me specifically, or if this happens to night shift workers all over the country. How many people working alone in the dark have faced something like this? How many of them said yes? Working nights at gas stations taught me something about the world that I wish I didn't know. There are things out there in the darkness that hunt for isolation, for vulnerability, for people who can't easily call for help. The regular customer who wasn't there, the caller who knew too much, the delivery man with unmarked boxes. I still work nights sometimes, but never alone, and never at gas stations. There's something about those places that attracts the wrong kind of attention. Those bright lights in the middle of nowhere, those glass windows that make you visible to anything watching from the darkness. If you work nights anywhere, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone makes you uncomfortable, don't try to be polite. Don't worry about being rude. Sometimes I wonder if I was targeted specifically, or if this happens to every night shift worker eventually. How many people out there have stories like mine? How many of them never got the chance to tell them? If you made it through all 3 stories, you're braver than most. Thanks for listening to my experiences. And if you're working nights somewhere, stay safe. Lock your doors. Trust your gut. And remember, you're never truly alone in the darkness. Something is always watching.